Hello everyone, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Vicky. I live in Cape Town, South Africa with my husband and my 18-month-old little boy. I was diagnosed with Perthes when I was very young still, and I've been struggling with the effects of the Perthes for years and years and years. And basically it's gotten to the point where I am needing a hip replacement at the age of 25. So let me start at the beginning. I was a typical child. I was adventurous and outspoken and active, and my parents would definitely add theatrical to that list. However, my life took a turn that was quite different to everyone else's. On the morning of my 4th birthday party, I woke up unable to walk. So I don't remember much of that morning, considering I had just turned 4 years old. But my mum told me that I had called her from my bedroom and told her that I can't get out of bed, can't walk. So they got me to a doctor, and the doctor didn't know what was wrong with me. So I went home. And this is actually a picture of me on my 4th birthday party, unable to walk. So watching all the other kids just play around at my birthday party. So after seeing some specialists, they came out with a diagnosis. I had been diagnosed with Perthes disease. Perthes is a rare childhood condition. It's a condition that occurs when the blood flow to the femur head gets temporarily disrupted, and without an adequate blood supply, the bone starts dying and it stops growing completely. The main long-term problems with this condition is that it can cause permanent femur head deformity, which you can see on my x-rays. I'll put a normal hip bone at the top and mine at the bottom. As you can see, there is quite a bit of difference on my left hip, which is where I had the Perthes. It also increases your chances to get osteoarthritis as an adult, and it can become a great source of pain when this deformity starts wearing away bone and cartilage, and you get a condition where you have bone on bone grinding in your hip, which is basically where I am now. As far as treatments go, they vary depending on the severity of your Perthes. Some kids are a little bit more lucky. They get something like traction or just wear a brace on their leg for, close to a year. But I was part of the more unfortunate group who had permanent damage in my hip and needed surgical intervention. My doctor, who was the foremost specialist in Perthes in South Africa at that time, actually went as far as to say that I was one of the worst cases he has seen to date. So surgery was my only option. Safe to say, I spent most of my childhood either in traction or in a cast or being operated or in the hospital or just back in traction or being operated again. It was absolutely... if I look back at it now, it doesn't seem so bad because it is my life and you make the most of what you are given. But if I compare it to someone who has a normal childhood, that does seem a little bit hectic. My grandpa actually made me a special traction device from a Coke bottle so that I can use that at home. He also made me a special walking aid to help me to learn to walk, because I needed to learn to walk all over again. He also made me a bigger wheelchair, since when I had the cast on, I literally couldn't even fit into a normal wheelchair. So my grandpa made those. I remember my dad drawing Bambi on my cast because that was my favorite movie. I also got in the habit of screaming my lungs out every time a plane would pass over our house, and that was in an attempt to try and get rid of some of the built-up frustration that I was feeling, considering I was a kid. I wanted to run around, I wanted to scream, I wanted to play with everyone else, and I couldn't. And I'm so grateful for everything that my parents did for me during those years, because if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would have been. It must have been so hard as a parent to see. This is a picture of me standing on my own for the very first time. So I healed for the most part. I still couldn't do any sport and I couldn't join the fun on the playground, but skip a few years and I need another operation. At that time I was about 13 years old, and this operation, they actually brought down a part of my hip, which you can see on the x-ray that I'm showing you now. They basically took out a little bit of the bone to bring it down just to make it possible to have a hip replacement in the future. They also stunted the growth in my right knee to try and even out the leg length discrepancy. At 22, I had another operation. This one was basically to just take out all the screws and the pins and the stents, and all the other unnatural things that was going on in my body at the time. Then skipped another few years and I was pregnant with Matthias, my little boy, and I actually had a really great pregnancy considering my Perthes hip. I had a great labor. It was absolutely amazing actually, and I feel so blessed that I could have had him given my circumstances. Throw back a few months, the pain got so bad that I couldn't even walk without being heavily medicated. That is not even mentioning things like looking after a toddler or cleaning up after that toddler, or even something as mundane as sleeping. The doctor now has me on very strong pain medication just for me to get through the day, and I should follow through with this until I can have the hip replacement. The doctor does want to have the hip replacement sooner than later to prevent any further damage to my current hip. We are looking to do the operation at the end of September of this year, which is 2018. So that's where you come in. I need your help. Unfortunately, we can't pay for the procedure out of pocket because it is such a complex and expensive procedure. I've started a Go Get Funding page to try and make up as much of the costs that I would need for my total hip replacement. The amount on there includes the procedure, the hospital stay, and the recovery, the physiotherapists and those kind of things. We need to raise 185,000 Rand, which is about $14,500. By September for me to be able to have this procedure done. This procedure will change my life. It'll not only improve the quality of life, but it will give me a life that I never really had. I'd be able to run around and play with my toddler. I'd be going through an entire day without chronic pain. And for those of you who know how I feel with chronic pain, I am so sorry to hear that, because that is not something that I would wish on anyone. It affects everything. It affects how you do things, it affects your mental health, it just affects every single aspect of your life. I'd actually be able to sleep through the night, because currently I am waking up every 1 to 2 hours in excruciating pain, and that is just from lying still. That's not even moving. And probably the most important to me is that I'd be allowed to get pregnant again. I always wanted to have at least 2 children, but the doctor said that in my current condition I should not even think about getting pregnant, as it can cause quite a lot of damage to my hip. I would really appreciate every single contribution, big or small, and if you can't make a donation to my cause, if you can just share my campaign with your friends and your family and on your social media, just to help me get the funds that I need to have this procedure, the procedure that would help me get my life back, I would be so entirely grateful. I just want to thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for your support. I hope that you have a wonderful day.